Yeah. Nice work.
I'm here to talk about a few things. So I mentioned to Mark that I wanted to talk about React Native back in April, and every month since I've wanted to talk about it, and so he's put me on the agenda, which is wicked, but I don't actually want to talk about React Native so much. I wanted to talk about a few other things, like oh, do you still use UIKit? Or maybe, oh, do you still use MVC? These are sort of the ideas I had. And then I finished with functional UI. I want to talk about how to do functional programming in the view layer, which up until now I've heard is quite a difficult thing to do, but it is a solved problem. So, who am I? My name's Smiley Rob. I work here at Atlassian, as we just mentioned before. I'm at this handle, RJ Chatfield, and I'll probably retweet a bunch of the things that are going on tonight. So please do follow me and connect with me. I encourage it. But functional UI. I'm going to talk, my talk's going to be in 3 different parts. I've not rehearsed much of this, and the demo is going to be pretty loosey-goosey, but just there's only a handful of you, so this should be fun. I'm going to talk about functional UIs and why that's really cool and important, or what it is. Then architecture, if you have a functional UI, then what does the rest of the app look like? And then demos of React Native and other ways to do it. So, okay, let's jump in. So when I was in uni, I'm a grad as well at Atlassian, so I actually know nothing. So when I was at uni, I read somewhere that the UI is a representation of the app state. And then I learned how to program views and learned that that's really hard to achieve, but just this kind of stuck with me. And so the point of my talk is this. Given app state, I should be able to predictably have a deterministic UI. So given a new state, you get a new UI. Given that existing state, you get the existing UI, right? Just having some sort of testable function. Given state A, I get UI A. Everyone understand? This is where I'm going with the whole talk. Okay. So what does that mean? So you say you've got your app, and then you've got this massive function in the middle. Arrow means function. Cool. And given some sort of state, you throw that into the function, and it'll give you a view, right? You give lots and lots of data, you pass that into the function, you get some different view. Like, you don't know how that works, and you're not responsible for that, you're just responsible for the middle bit. And then you pass in different state, and you pass that in, and you get a different view, right? Sounds like magic. No pointers, no selectors, no references to IB outlets and such, just a function. So how will we do this? So story time. This guy, his name's Andy, he's pretty good. Used to work at Apple for a great number of years on the UIKit team. And this is a shot of him in a YouTube clip talking about values, right? Passing values around. And he specifically said that you can do functional programming in the UI layer. And I'm a uni student still trying to learn more. I got to a certain point where I didn't like the idea of values being passed around and that's it, right? I was stuck on the idea that there has to be state somewhere. Especially when rendering to the screen and trying to update the screen, you've got to have pointers. And then this guy, the guy in the audience actually asked a good question, so I'm going to cut to that.
If you have your data model as values, which I do, it seems like you sort of go to a GL-like view of redoing the user interface, where it's like, at every step, redraw every damn thing because you don't know.
Yep, immediate mode.
And so do you have any strategies for making that more efficient?
I'm so glad you asked. Is there anyone from Facebook here? No? All right, well, they're working on it.
They're working. Yeah, right? They're working on it. Okay, cool. So when Andy says that they're working on it, that means something, right? He's not saying, oh, Apple, yeah, they're working on that. So this is the campus, and they built a thing called React. But then on the other side of the campus, they also made a thing called Cocoaheads. Has anyone seen Cocoaheads? Yeah, 1, 2, great. 2 people have heard of Cocoaheads. It's written in Objective-C++, and it's achieving this thing that I'm going to talk about soon. And they use it in the Facebook app. They had engineering issues, and they said, let's just switch to immutability in the view layer, and all our problems went away. They went to immutability in the model layer as well, and a lot of their problems went away, and immutability everywhere. But on the same campus, they're solving the same problem. One was for the DOM, one was for the app. But this guy, I think his name's Jim, let's call him Jim anyway, he had this slide that said, what is React? And it said, React is a bridge between a declarative API and an imperative API. So imperative meaning I need an IB outlet, I need dot label, dot description equals blah, I need to mutate the things that are on screen. And switching that out with a declarative API, saying, I declare that the UI should look like this given a certain state. Right? So that's all React is trying to be. It had nothing to do with the web, it had nothing to do with mobile, it was just trying to give a declarative API to an imperative API. So the first implementation of this was given state, I could give you a DOM, right? It was done in the web, it was called React.js, it's really cool. Sorry, going back on that, lots of people use this. Yahoo use this, Netflix use it, who are the cool kids? Uber, Facebook obviously use it, we at Atlassian use it, so it's a pretty big deal. Then they released React Native, and that was given a state, we can render to UIKit and keep UIKit intact, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that's a thing. But then some guys at Flipboard, they went, nah, the DOM's too slow, and we want a mobile app, and we want it to be both down to mobile and stretch out to a web view. We want animations, and we want to do it in Canvas. So they ported React to Canvas, which was like, wait, you can port this thing? I thought that was pretty cool. And so some other guys at Netflix, they ported it to TV. So they could do, they were doing web views and doing all of their TV. Actually, they do all of their applications now in React that I know of. Then some Norge, because the internet is awesome, they did, given a certain state, they can render to a console, right? Using Flexbox and all sorts of stuff. I don't really care about that. And as of this week, which will make for a good demo, Facebook just announced that given state, they can render to Android. So this was actually, I don't care. So, so the question is how? How did they achieve this? And they had this concept called the virtual DOM. Yeah, put your hand up if I'm boring you, but I'm going to go through how this structure works, with hopefully for inspiration that you will go away and go and write this in Swift, because at the moment this is just JavaScript. So I'm going to describe how it works. So again, the arrow is functions, and we're going to go from left to right. So given a certain state, it goes through many stages. The first stage, given state, they compute this data structure called the view. Okay? In a virtual DOM, they actually render what they call a virtual DOM, a representation in a data structure form. It's very much like a tree of what they expect to be on the screen when they're done. Next, they take this view, they also take what the view used to look like, so a virtual representation of the old view and the new view, and they pass that through a function and get a diff. Is everyone keeping up here? So now you get this very abstract data structure of what the difference is between what I expect you to have and what you have. And then given this diff, they pass that into a function, and they get an array of patches. Right? Patches of things that need to be updated, an explicit list. This is when we start going DOM mutations or UIKit functions. And then finally, those patches get applied and you get a brand new UI. Right? It's just a number of transforms on certain data. And going from left to right, this is all, and most of this is written in JavaScript, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. This part is all done in a background thread, right? Done at however many times a millisecond. And then only when the patches get applied do they jump up into the main thread and block the UI. So the scrolling is smooth, network requests can be coming in and they could be computing all of this, but all of that's handled in the background thread, right? So no longer, you're not only being declarative, but you're actually being safe. This is always responsive. In fact, you can't block the main thread. Well, that's challenge accepted, right? Okay, so does everyone get this? This is what they achieved. They did this software engineering feat, which I think is awesome. They did it in the DOM, and now they brought it to native. Sweet. So everyone got that? State, function, UI. Everyone cool? Okay. I think that's just, okay, and they achieved this. So, given that you know about functional UIs now, this idea that just you have this function, a testable function, let's talk about the architecture. And I really hate this guy, and so did Manuel. Manuel did a talk 2 months ago about how MVVM could be the solution for things. And this is one of his slides. I'm just stealing it. I'm so sorry. And this bit I loved, right? This bit was like, wait, the model could be immutable? The model is state itself. Like that's the thing that mutates over time. So this was the eye-opener for me in his talk. But then he had these like silly lines going both ways, and then you still have controllers, but let's not call it a controller. I don't know. It seemed like this was amazing, and we had some work to do on this side, right? So coming back to MVC, because that's what Apple calls it, we have a model, we have a controller that sits between that and the view. Now, if you were trying to map this in your head, you're like, I've got an app, I know what's going on, and you're telling me that there's a function, so it probably makes sense that you're going to call on these three things. And the strike through it means that's not where I'm going with this, right? So you've got a model, given a model, you do a controller thing, and you get a view at the end. Up until now, I forgot to mention that there is a bidirectional nature, but these two things are separate in our world. So the idea that you have a model, but then you have something that renders to the view, and the view will do something back to the model, they are two separate things and are not one controller. So in the React world, did you like that animation? So in the React world, we have names for all of these things, right? And notice that we've lost the view, we've lost the model, and we've lost controller. So I'm going to go around this. This is pretty cool. This is what I call the circle of life. We have a component, right? Component is everything I've been talking about at the moment, right? So it's given a state, I can give you a URL. Well, let's start from the other end. Down the bottom we had given a trigger, so given a user interaction of some sort, like it began with some sort of event, go and produce some sort of update for the store. Okay, that's all this is. So given a trigger, I will give you an update. Given a different trigger, I will give you a different update. Given that same trigger, same update, right? Idempotent, what's that word? Where it's like predictable, deterministic? Idempotent, is that a word? I'm making that up. Is it right?
It is now.
It is now, yeah. I'm the one talking. All right, so the first thing, given a trigger, you get a new state. Now, this is called the store. This is take the old state of the entire system and this update and fold that to create a new state, right? Now suddenly our model is just a function. It's just a reduce or a fold, depending on which language you write in. But given the old state and a new thing, merge them together to give me a new state. And then you've seen this before, given that state, I will give you the UI, right? This is huge. We have three parts of the code. We don't even maintain this. The framework contains that, looks after that. But we write a function here, a very deterministic function. We write a very deterministic function, highly testable, highly type-based. And we've got no pointers, no selectors, no nothing. So I think this is pretty cool. And this is the crux of my talk. So instead of having a model, right, we can get past this. We can think of state as data. And this was, and Manuel's nodding, this was the point of his talk, I think. And he had that right column and he nailed it, right? So it's not immutable and you're not going in and updating fields. You're taking the old state and mutating and reducing a new one, producing a new one, right? So there's no concept of model anymore. We've got to solve the problem of having state as data. And then the next thing was a controller. Controller is no longer a problem, right? We're not trying to update this and then go back and update the model using APIs. We're trying to communicate events. When something happens, go and chain all those things to update that model again, and let that go and chain and go and update the view, right? So I think that this was nice that this followed your talk on reactive Cocoa. I do this in RxJS, but the concepts are still the same. Communicating events is the problem we need to solve, not the controller. And then finally, the purpose of my talk is that our components, our views, are just functions, right? Our components as functions. And this is my favorite slide if you want to take a photo. This is the whole point of computer science, I think, in one slide, right? Yeah, cool, get your iPads. Your Apple Watches could do it. I know you've all got one. So, model, state as data, controller, just communicating events, and the view is components as functions. Well, they're all functions. So, that's the architecture. I've been flying through this because I just want to be heckled and get into a demo. But functional UI, architecture, and let's jump into a demo. All right, so that works. So So I'm going to use React Native because I think they've done a great job, but by no means is this about JavaScript or about, yeah, it's not about JavaScript. I don't want to be that guy who's like, hey, we've got a new framework, you should all use it. Anyway, so, oh, that's not a thing, okay, wrong command. So I've just created a brand new React project. It's pretty simple, it just forks from NPM, and you can use Cocoaheads if you want to put it into an existing project. You can see there's an Android folder and an iOS folder, so this code base will be shared across both implementations, and then everything just ends in .js, because, yeah, cool. Here's something I prepared earlier, so let's get that here and... Ugh. Who's ever wanted that green thing on your screen? All right, welcome to Cocoaheads. So, I'm going to give you a crash course in JavaScript. Who's done JavaScript in the last month? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is ES6. This kind of is gone official this year and is available in React. So I have a class called Cocoaheads Demo, and it extends a React component, and it only has one function called render. Is everyone keeping up? There's no types memo, but I will get back to that. And the function does nothing, it takes nothing, but it will just render this DOM thing in the middle, right? So this file, even though it's JavaScript, it's actually an extension of JavaScript that Facebook used called JSX. So it's JavaScript and XML. So this is not HTML, this is just HTML-like because XML. So I've got a view, open and close, and the view has some sort of styles that I've got somewhere else on this page. And then I've got this thing called a welcome, and it takes in some sort of argument. Is everyone okay reading this? I'm going to try and build this as we go. All right, so if I change this to, hey, smiley Rob. Cool. Oh, that updated in the background, which is helpful. Okay, did everyone see that? Now, did I have to go into Xcode? Did I have to recompile just because I changed the value of a label? No. Yes, that's right. No, I didn't. Okay, that's cool, Rob. Let's keep playing. So in any class, you have a see, I'm new to live coding. I don't have snippets, but that's okay. So you have a constructor, and all components take in props. I'm just going to call super with those props. You're just going to see me type out everything. I'm not going to put the semicolons there so that you can understand if you know Swift. That's a joke. That's good. Now, this thing is called a component. So, and every component has state, right? And I'm going to call this name. So name equal no name. This is going to be like the default name, right? So does everyone see this? I'm going to have a variable called state, and I'm going to set it to an object with a key value pair of name. It's going to have a value of no name, right? And so down here, I'm just going to replace this with this dot state. You guessed it, dot name. Cool. And I'll save that. No name. All right. Is everyone keeping going? Cool. So one really nice thing is that React prohibits you from being able to mutate the state from within render. So it actually lifts this function out and composes all of the components together, just calling each other's renders. It calls the view render, it calls the welcome render, and it closes that all out and returns that here. But you can't update the state here. So it's almost like these are unrelated. I want that to be sort of in the back of your mind. That it's almost like there's two parts of the code. There's kind of the stateful part, and then there's the view, the declarative view down the bottom there. So, okay, so we've got state, but that's not really cool. So I'm going to try a button. I'm just making this up because it's somewhere else on my code. And I have a label on my button, which is smiley Rob. Cool. And I think I called it an action. So this is why you should prepare, guys. And that takes a nothing, and we'll do nothing. I just want to see if this compiles. Whack. Okay. Oh, I didn't close my braces. Now, does everyone see that? I wrote shit code. And it doesn't crash. Xcode doesn't jump up over the top and like stop everything and I have to recompile and start again. I just get this really horrible red screen, right? It said unexpected token on line 115, which if I had line numbers would tell me that it's here, right? Cool. And then I'm just going to resave that. JSX attribute, double quotes, yeah. Oh, really? Thanks, ESLine. Okay, cool. Save. You got a problem with that? No, you don't have a problem with that. So I've got a linter in the background that's telling me that I should be better at coding. Okay, so now I've got a welcome, which takes in a name, which I've got set to no name, and then I've got a button that has a label that says Smiley Rob. Now that doesn't do anything, so let's keep jumping down here. Cool. So I've just sort of staggered that out so we can all see it. And in here, I'm going to have this dot set state to Smiley Rob. That makes sense. I'm kind of seeing duplicity, so I might fix this in a second. Let's just save that. Oh, I like to have spaces there, yeah, because good on you. Okay, cool. So I've got this, and if I click this, who thinks this is going to work? Okay. This does state takes an object. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm totally the stupid dude. Okay, so you put this and... Alright, so what it was saying is that I have to set state, you have to give a key value pair, because state is massive. So thank you for not failing in my face. Yeah, click this button, and now I get this. There, cool. I'm not done. Okay, for my next trick. We've got a const, because let was taken, of names, and that is an array of names. You don't like semicolons. And the first guy is Cocoaheads. Next one's Smiley Rob, and the next one's like iOS 9. This is iOS 9 day. I'm surprised no one's talking about that. Okay, so I'm going to take names. And I'm going to kind of use this idea, but I'm going to go names.map. Does everyone remember what that does? And given a name, a num, I want you to return, let's get that here, return something that looks like this. Okay? Oh, I probably did that a little bit more. All right? So I'm going to map over every name. And that's going to, given a name, so given this thing, go and put this in here. So given a name, put that name, and set name to be, actually, that will work. Just take my word for it. Or don't. Okay, cool. So I've just mapped over this array, and it's returned me a component, right? I'm composing this together, as you can see, and I get 3 different buttons, and let me just click to see if this is working. Hey! All right, and for my next trick. No. But does everyone see how this is like, I'm not updating this later. I'm not going and keeping a reference to this IB outlet and setting the label of this. And I just declare what it will look like at any point in time. And then given a different state, I will render something different. Okay? So where does this get interesting? Another thing, testing. So if you test a UI, you've got to go and press the button and then see that it updated the screen. That's, if ever you have update code, that's the life you live. In this, I need to test render. And render is just a function. So if I mop out, view is just a function, and welcome is just a function. So if I can stub, if I stub this guy, and is that right? And that guy, and just say, did you, and button. If I stub them out, given render and given a certain state, did I call the right functions at the other end, right? So I'm stubbing both worlds and I'm just calling every permutation of logic. And so I can write unit tests for each component that I have and start to compose some pretty funky things. So if I come down and show you what the other things look like, here's ones I prepared earlier. So here's welcome, right? It takes in this thing called props. So props are something that get given to you, and state was something that you have inside you. So this has no mention of state, which makes it pure. Given props, render this, right? So coming down to button, this one's a little bit hairier, but it has a thing called a touchable opacity. That gives you that when I click on it, it fades, and if I click away, it should, because this is a real UI view, like this is a real UI button. This is just an XML representation of it. And then on click, I don't even think I need that. And then on press, call whatever action that you gave me, right? And I pass that in from props. And then the text has some sort of style in this. Let's play around with styles. That's the other cool thing. So we have a button. Let's make the font size 320. Oh, let's try it. Okay, that's stupid. All right, 30. Cool, 30. Let's make the font weight 600. Yeah, let's make it 1,000. No, that's 10,000. Okay. Okay, so we're getting, as I'm building, I'm tinkering, and I'm building this function that takes in font weight, and it's thrown an error because this is the wrong value type, right? So I might not have strict values as far as annotations, but I can check all these things, which I wasn't really getting before. I would have to sort of reload my app, get to the state that I was, and then find out that it didn't render for some reason, or it's seg faults, because I'm really good at that. So I think 900's a valid thing. Yeah, that's wicked. I got really bold buttons, because that's standard. You probably have a little bit more vertical padding, so we have this padding, horizontal, it's probably 20, and this is probably vertical. I'll find that in a second, that's probably 10. Cool. So did everyone see? I just added some padding on the outside, just because that's what I wanted. And I'm able to tinker around with this and build components. Build this button class, which is all the way down here. Like this will, if ever I use a button, will look like this everywhere in my app. Right? Every time I use a welcome, I'm going to get that thing up the top. And I start to compose these things so I can reuse them throughout my application, and life is good. Cool. So, does anyone have any questions about what I've just demoed here?